A recent poll found that 34% of Americans would move abroad if given the opportunity, or a total of 117 million people. And after the election, searches for how to leave the US spiked by 1,500%. Even with all of that, only 100,000 of those 117 million people actually move abroad every year. In this episode, we're going to explore why that is. And spoiler alert, it all starts up here in your mind. We're going to share in this video the 7 mindsets of a successful entrepreneur expat so that you can be one of the 0.1% of people who actually make their dream a reality. Make sure to stick around until the last one, because if you change just that one mindset in your mind, it can change your entire world.
Welcome to Entrepreneur Expat. This is Justin, I'm Amanda, and we're currently expats living in Mexico and traveling the world. On this channel, what we do is we talk about how to create online income so you can go anywhere that you want. We talk about global citizenship, we talk about moving to other countries, travel vlogs, and so much more. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we have coming out on this channel. And if you're interested in our help for creating a location-independent business, we each have over 15 years of experience each in online entrepreneurship, including marketing, sales, systems, putting offers together, and so much more. We've helped hundreds of people just in my programs, and you've helped 7- to 8-figure entrepreneurs with your agency. So you're in good hands with us. You can find the link to book a call with us below.
So let's get into mindset number 1. Mindset number 1 is that you are responsible for your own life. Now, this is very, very important because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll try to put the responsibility for things that happen to them on other people. More importantly, they'll put the responsibility for how they react to what happened to them on other people. It's very important to remove the victim mentality if you're in that state of saying, woe is me, I'm a product of all these circumstances and all these things that have happened to me.
Or the government.
Or this political candidate, it's Trump's fault, it's Kamala's fault, it's Biden's fault, that's why I can't be successful, that's why I can't make money, that's why I'm broke. You need to be responsible for your own life.
It's my job, it's my boss, my job takes too much time from me, it's my kids, it's my wife. We've heard people use all kinds of excuses. I mean, I've been in sales for 16 years, and one thing you get really accustomed to is calling out people on their excuses. And they'll even use God as an excuse as to why they can't do things, just to have someone to blame when they don't do what it is that they said they wanted to do. And we'll get to that one later.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, you and only you are responsible for your own life. And even if you've been through trauma, believe me, we've seen some both in our own lives and in the lives of our clients and other people. Everybody's got some. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can definitely control how you react to that. And at the end of the day, the word responsible is really able to respond. So if you're able to respond in a way that's positive, in a way that's productive, and in a way that is acknowledging the good or the silver lining in any situation, no matter what, that's how you can be a successful entrepreneur expat, because you're taking matters into your own hands and you're able to truly create your own reality.
Yeah, it's like Tom Bilyeu says, don't be a victim, and even if you were one, it's not helpful to think like one, because you'll never get anywhere if you do.
Exactly. It's whether it's true or not, or whether someone actually is to blame for your life, positive or negative, it's not empowering to blame that person or that thing for your success or lack of success. Instead, you really want to look to yourself for meaning and be responsible for your results.
The next one is money is abundant and you can always make more no matter where you are in the world. Now, I spent 8 years as a financial writer and educator. Then I started training people on how to do sales. We both have had major successes, also major failures, which is actually where we learned the most about money, is when we were failing.
Absolutely.
And how to relate to it. And one thing that people really have to rewire in their minds, and I know it doesn't look like it when governments are responding the way that they are and people are responding the way that they are, but it doesn't make it any less true that we live in an abundant universe and there's always an opportunity to make money. Period. Point blank. End of story.
People are like, there's a recession, there's a financial crisis, whatever. Did you know that some of the biggest companies that are around today, I think that Macy's was one of them. There's a lot of big department stores, some of which are still around. A lot of electronics, technology companies that started actually in some of the biggest recessions that we had, like the Great Depression. The Great Depression cost more millionaires and billionaires at its core than almost any other time in history. Obviously, now everything is changing with the internet and everything else, but for its time, that was actually the creator of so much opportunity and so many billions and billions of dollars of wealth, because the people that knew that money was abundant and there's always opportunities to make money, they just took advantage of that scenario and made the best of it and were able to create opportunity where everybody else just saw devastation and chaos.
Speaking of which, problems are just opportunities to make money.
Number 3.
That's number 3. Most of us are taught to avoid problems throughout most of our life. We're taught not to lose instead of playing to win. And the thing is that if you're playing to win in life and if you plan on making a lot of money in life, now why do you want to make a lot of money? So you can very easily pack up your stuff and go wherever you want. That's why you want to do that. A lot of people will say, well, money doesn't make you happy. You're right, it doesn't. But you know what does? Having the option to pack up your shit when you don't like what's going on and doing it very easily and being able to get visas and having options. Having options makes people happy. And in order for you to have options, we live in a world where you need money. Money gives you options.
Yeah, but at its core, all of these problems that you see around us, for example, you see a problem with the way that cities are run, you see a problem with transportation, you see a problem with healthcare, you see a problem with maybe a software product or some other piece of technology that you use on a regular basis. You're like, wow, this I hate this. This is a problem. This sucks. I know there's a better way to do it. Problems are just opportunities in disguise and big opportunities to make money if you can be the one to find a solution to people's problems. You got to think like that if you want to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, you can't run away from problems if you plan on being an entrepreneur. All entrepreneurship is solving problems all the damn time. That is all it is. And one of the things, one of my mentors for a long time said, learn to like problems. That's what you have to learn how to do. Most people try to avoid problems, but the people who become successful and wealthy in life are constantly dealing with problems and they don't mind dealing with problems. They've learned how to deal with them and see the opportunity within them.
Now, number 4, and this is a really, really big one that we see as responsible for more of the failures in terms of people that are trying to be one of those 0.1% that actually make it, that actually succeed, that actually move abroad and create the life that they want. When we talked about those numbers before, by the way, those 100,000 people a year that move abroad, we don't actually know how many of them are actually successful or stay abroad permanently or end up finding a way to make money when they're there, or if they just move abroad and they're there for 2-3 years living off of savings, or if they're just living off of retirement and pinching pennies for the rest of their life, which even if you live somewhere like Mexico, even if you live somewhere like Colombia, prices are going up. There's inflation. It's not like just this paradise where, hey, I've got $50,000, $100,000 in the bank. I can just live the rest of my life well. You still have to have income or a very substantial retirement account, not nearly as big as in the U.S. You don't have to have millions and millions of dollars in the bank, perhaps, but you still need a lot more money than you might think. Mexico's not as cheap as it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Nowhere. There's worldwide inflation.
Exactly. So you want to still make sure that you're able to make money, or you've got a very sizable nest egg, whether it's a house you're selling or a retirement account that at least has got several $100,000 in it if you're not planning on ever working. And even if you're not planning on working, and if you've got enough money to survive and to live even decently or well in another country, number 4 is a really, really big one. It's that entrepreneur expats or successful entrepreneur expats always keep their word. Here's the thing. If you say, hey, I'm going to work out, I'm going to go to the gym every day this week, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to maybe take my relationship with my significant other more seriously, we're going to go on a date night once a week, we're going to do certain things, and you commit to that to yourself or especially to another person, then you don't do it, what are you saying in your own mind to yourself? If you can't keep your word to yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to do big things like move to another country and actually build the type of life that you want, because it is a very big decision. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work to really make the stars align to make all that happen for you, especially if you're trying to get out of a job, which you'll see some of our other videos around this one as well, about how you just really cannot become an entrepreneur expat if you're just working a 9 to 5 job, even if it's quote unquote remote. They're not allowing people to move out of the country anymore. So you've got to be an entrepreneur. You've got to start your own thing. You've got to at least have some type of business structure that allows you to both get the visa required for another country and also to actually have an abundant, fulfilling life there. And that takes money. And if you want to make money from another country, you need to have a business. And if you want to have a business and you want to have agreements with people and contracts and negotiations and deals and have clients that also do what they say they're going to do and pay on time and have relationships with those clients that are successful and fulfilling, you need to start by keeping your word to yourself. You need to keep your word to yourself, because if you don't, then everything else is not going to matter.
Everything else essentially falls apart. And the reason why is because every time you don't do what you said you were going to do, what you are literally, from a neuroscience perspective, you are training your mind to believe that you cannot be trusted. That's literally what happens in your brain every time, because every time you let yourself down, essentially, because that's what you're doing. So if you're like, man, I'm just not going to eat all that chocolate cake this week, and then you go eat the damn chocolate cake, you are telling yourself that you cannot be trusted. That's literally what goes on in your brain. So then when it comes to bigger decisions like, oh, I'm going to change the way that I make money, I'm going to move to another country, you've already taught yourself that you cannot trust yourself with little things. So there's no way that your brain is going to trust you when it comes to big things like moving to another country. And that's why if you ever take personal development courses, business courses, sales courses, the number one thing everybody usually says is you must keep your word to yourself first and foremost in order for everything else to actually work. Because in keeping your word to yourself, essentially what you do is you start teaching yourself that you can be trusted. And the biggest problem people have in life is that they don't trust themselves. They don't trust themselves because they have a lifetime of letting themselves down.
It's not about where you are. It's not about the money in your bank account. It's about your resourcefulness. So if you can just decide, hey, today I'm going to take that next step and I'm going to do what it takes to become a successful entrepreneur expat, you can do it from Mexico, even being a Mexican. You can do it from Colombia, having been raised in Colombia. I know plenty of people actually in Colombia. I lived there for several years that are running multiple six-figure businesses. They've never visited the US. They've never had a visa to the US or anywhere like that. They've been able to get their clients online.
Yeah, and this is another really important part is, and it's related to this, it doesn't matter what's happened in your past. I don't care if you have bankruptcies, I don't care where you come from, we don't care about any of that stuff, because this principle applies no matter what. It's interesting because we'll get a lot of comments, which the Mexicans probably find very offensive. I would be offended if I was them. I'm offended as a Latino when I see the comments, which is just like assuming everybody in Mexico is poor, which is definitely not the case. We've had people be like, oh, Mexico's a third world country. It's definitely not third world
There's
country.
more nice Audis and Range Rovers on this block than there are in a lot of parts of Miami.
Yeah, and in addition to
where
that,
we are in Guadalajara, right here.
in addition to that, a lot of we recently took like an abundance mindset class taught by Mexicans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it wasn't taught by Americans, it wasn't taught by Canadians, because these principles apply all over the world, no matter where it is that you are. Do you have, income inequality in Mexico? Has there been corrupt governments? Are there? Yeah, sure, that stuff exists freaking everywhere. But the point is that there are Mexicans, for example, who are like, you know what? I'm not buying into that stuff. And I'm going to be an abundant person, and here's how. And they've been very successful at it. And
a lot of them didn't come from wealth too. A lot of them built their own wealth. There's this myth, and it's in the U.S. and it's in Latin America as well. This myth that all of the people that are successful have their money because they inherited it. It's actually like very low double-digit percentages of people who are millionaires in the U.S. that inherited their wealth. And even when they do, that generally doesn't last more than a generation or two. The people that have money, especially the money that's going to be around for generations, is because they built it and then they teach their children how to actually work, how to generate that income. It's not because everybody's inheriting wealth. You literally can do the same thing as any other millionaire or even billionaire in the US with very, very little exception. And there's more opportunities now than I think there ever were in the world. And especially if you're outside of the US or Canada or one of the wealthy Western nations, There's so much opportunity because with the internet and AI and everything else, you are on an even playing field.
Yeah, you guys are in emerging markets that are on their way up and not saturated. So, for example, in the United States, this really shocked me about Mexico actually. In the United States, I'll have a lot of friends complaining, like, oh, the coaching industry is so saturated in the United States, the info product industry. And then here in Mexico, it's literally just getting started. So, because it's an emerging country. All of that to say, there's opportunity all over the world, and your richness lies in your resourcefulness.
Now, number 7, and last but definitely not least. In fact, this is the one we told you at the beginning of the video that you really want to stay the end till, because it's possibly going to make the biggest difference in your entrepreneur expat journey. And this mindset hack is that you know that your goals do not need to take as long as you think they do. And that includes big shifts in your life, like moving to another country. We've had so many people that have said, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Mexico. I'm thinking about moving to Europe. I'm thinking about moving somewhere else. And like, it's in my 10-year plan. I'm going to work this job. I'm going to save some money. I'm going to make it happen. Dude, you don't know if that country's going to allow Americans in 10 years. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, God forbid, cancel. But like, you don't know if you're still going to be around, if you're still going to be in good health, right? You don't know what is going to be going on in 10 years that might make you not able to go to that place or even leave your country at all for so many different reasons.
Yeah, one of the logical fallacies that humans have, and when you learn a lot about sales and sales training, this is one of the things they teach you. They teach you about all the logical fallacies that human beings use to make decisions that aren't actually rooted in any logic or reality at all. One of those is that it takes a long time to do things, it takes a long time to reach goals, and it doesn't. So here's an example. You know, let's say, right, you want to make $10,000 a month in a business. It really doesn't need to take that long at all. All you would need to do is figure out, okay, well, what can I sell that I can charge $10,000 for and sell it to one person? That's it, just one person to pay.
People overcomplicate this so much.
Yeah, they overcomplicate it a lot because they've been taught to trade time for dollars. They've been taught that if they sell things at lower prices, they're easier to sell. It's actually the exact opposite. The higher the price, the easier it is to sell. Or
we've had people, like I said earlier in this video, where you're like, okay, it's $15K for the year, and in 10 minutes you have a wire in your account on that phone call. And then other things where we try to fill a workshop or a seminar for a few $100s, and
it's like pulling teeth.
It's like pulling teeth. I'm like, but this other guy sent me, 5 figures and right in a few minutes, and $500 for you to make $100,000 a year. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, so that's another one of the logical fallacies. Now, the reason why we have a lot of logical fallacies like this is because we've been taught to stay safe, and we've been taught that it's responsible, but that would be another logical fallacy. There is no such thing as security. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing.
Especially in a job. People think, oh, I have this secure job with a nice 401k. I hate to break it to you guys, but 401ks and IRAs and all that are a scam by the government to basically hold on to your money as long as they can, make money off of it, and convince you that you shouldn't get that money until you're like 65 years old, when you're barely going to actually be able to do anything with it other than just survive.
Plus, there's a very real concern that if the government needs money, guess what's the first thing they're going to tax and raid?
The pensions.
The pensions, the retirement accounts. Yep, so there's that very real concern. Entrepreneurs are like, well, I could spend $10,000 in my business and turn that into $50,000 in 2 months. Where else are you going to get a return like that? But that's a specific.
That's legal anyway.
That's legal, yeah. But that's because we're conditioned into these things. We're conditioned into making money is hard. It takes a long time. I have to trade time for money. If I'm going to move to another country, I have to make a 5-year plan. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some things that are legitimate. Like, for example, if you have a business, you have to figure out, okay, am I going to sell it? Am I going to offload it? And maybe there's things that need to be done in order to get there.
But you don't have to worry about that now at the beginning. Just get your first customer.
Yeah. So and actually, this is actually really interesting. The bigger a business is and the more complicated it is, the harder it is for people to make decisions like, okay, I'm going to move to another country now, because they might have the money to do it, but there's a lot of behind the scenes things that need to get taken care of that are a lot more complicated versus You right now watching this, maybe you don't have a ton of money. Maybe you just have a couple grand saved in the bank. Well, it's actually easier for you to just pack up your shit and go if you know how to make money online than it is for somebody who has an 8-figure company and has to deal with employees and tax implications and all kinds of stuff.
And then they're paying 5 or 6 or 7 figures just to figure out all of that move with their business and employees and having to hire new people and CPAs and everything else versus being able to do it for next to nothing. People make the mistake, again, back to logical fallacies of saying, well, I'm going to wait until I have a 7-figure business and then I'm going to move overseas. Well,
That was
why?
me.
Why would you do that?
That was me because I thought I needed employees running things, I needed automations running everything, and then I can move overseas. Well, ironically, I ended up losing all of that. I was the brokest I'd ever been in my life up until that point. I mean, I still had a 6-figure business, but for me, that was broke at the time. I know I'm going to get haters for that, but it was significantly less money than I was accustomed to making. And that's when I moved abroad. And then I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I thought I needed all this complication in order to do it. And it was actually the exact opposite. And I didn't learn until I got to Mexico that had I still had employees in the United States while I was living here, it would have caused a big tax problem. I didn't know that. So I was just complicating all this stuff in my head, which is what most people tend to do. And another area where they tend to complicate is they're like, oh, Amanda and Justin, you guys tell me I need to learn marketing and sales. You sure do. If you plan on making money anywhere in the world, it just is what it is. It's the nature of a business. And then you'll be like, oh, that'll take me so long to learn. It only
No, it won't.
it only takes 20 hours of focused attention and action to become proficient at a new skill. You won't be a master, but you'll be good enough to make money in 20 hours. That's all it takes. The problem is, A, most people don't know that. B, they've been taught that's impossible or that they need to be super smart or intelligent or something, which is also bullshit. Plenty of dumb people make a lot of money. And then the third thing is that a lot of people don't put focused attention into what it is that they want because they're distracted by a bunch of different things because they're following this programming that everything needs to take a long time. So what are they going to do? They're going to distract themselves with a bunch of bullshit so that it takes a long time.
Yeah, the key is essentially moving the goalposts a little backwards
Instead of forward.
Because if the goal is so far out there in the future, number one, people actually get things done in a container of the amount of time that they think it's going to take, or the amount of time, I should say, that they actually have available. So if you say, all right, well, I have 5 years to figure this out, then best case scenario, you're not going to get there for another 5 years. Worst case scenario, what's probably going to happen is in that 5 years, something's going to happen, something's going to change the plan completely. You're going to lose your desire to do it in the first place because you're going to sell yourself short on, hey, maybe it's not possible after all, or whatever. There's going to be some black swan event that messes up the plans completely.
That happened to me too.
Yeah. But on the other hand, if you say, you know what, I'm going to do it in 3 months. I'm going to say, you know what, 3 months from now, I will be living in Colombia. I will be living in Jamaica. I will be living in Central Europe, wherever it is. And you write that down on a piece of paper and then start actually saying, I need this, I need this, I need this. And just let your brain go and figure out exactly how to make those things happen, then believe it or not, you will make that happen in 3 months. I'll give you an example of when I decided to move to Colombia. I had actually just visited Colombia several weeks prior and had moved to Austin recently in the US when I was still living in the States. This was about 10 years ago, nearly. And I said, actually, no, more like 7 years, but I said, you know what? I'm done with Austin. It's a beautiful city, but like it's not for me. I was tired of paying $18 for 2 tacos and a Gatorade from a food truck when I could have the same kind of thing in Colombia for $2 or $3. And the food in Colombia was much more fresh anyway. And the dating in Texas was not great, or in California or anywhere else. And I said, you know what? Screw it all. I'm going to go to Colombia. And my lease was ending. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make this happen. And in 2 weeks, I bought a ticket to go. I put all my stuff in storage, including my car, packed up everything, put it in there, got all the paperwork and import permits and everything for my dog ready. I had like 4 suitcases, a dog in tow, and a backpack, carry-on, whatever. And I went and I was in Colombia for 3 years. I made it happen. I figured out the visa situation. I went back and forth to see family a couple times. But basically, from that decision to actually make it happen, it took 2 weeks to go there and start my new phase of my life abroad. So you can do it in as little or as much time as you want, but your goals absolutely do not have to take as long as you think they do.
It's the exact same thing with making money. Every time we've made a decision to be like, we're going to make this amount of money by X date, it happens. And it's not magic. It's because your brain will automatically start trying to figure out ways on how to do that. And because we know we live in an abundant universe, we know that there's money all around us. And sometimes it comes in by surprise. But it was the same thing. I mean, how long did it take me to move to Mexico?
Few weeks.
Few weeks. It was no big deal.
We joke that you had a suitcase and a half of your own stuff because you brought 2 suitcases, and half of one of them was my Amazon purchases that I wanted you to bring here.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, if you get one thing from this video, let it be this. Everything starts with a decision. And I don't know if you guys know what the word decision means, but it actually means to cut. So a lot of you are going to cut off everything that doesn't move you forward in what it is that your goal is. And most people don't do that. And that's why they don't get to where they want to go.
They say, I kind of maybe want to do this thing.
But they don't make a decision.
Right. You have to actually decide and say, I'm going to do it, and put a date to it and just
Go.
figure out what you need to do. Because otherwise you're going to be waiting on it forever for the perfect time, and the perfect time will never come.
It's that same principle when we were all in school, and maybe you guys were like me, where it was like, oh, if I had all the time in the world, or at work, you have all the time in the world to get this project done, and then it doesn't get done. But then you come down to the wire and you're in the last 3 hours, and then finally you get 2 weeks worth of work done in 3 hours because you felt the pressure. Same kind of deal.
Exactly. And I know I drank a lot of Red Bulls in my day trying to study for those finals when I hadn't paid attention the entire semester in class.
Same thing, same principle. It's just this time you're using it to your benefit, but it does actually work as a psychological hack.
100%. So that is today's episode on the mindsets of a successful entrepreneur expat. If you enjoyed this, please like this video, give it a thumbs up. It helps us so much with our mission to reach 1 million entrepreneur expats and aspiring expats. And if you're ready to take things to the next level, go to entrepreneurexpat.com/apply, and you can apply to speak with us about building your own location independent business and maybe working on a few of those pieces of your mindset that we still need to fix to get you to that next level, where you can start to take the actions and make the decisions that you need to make in your life to really make your dream a reality.
Thank you so much for giving us your time today. We are honored and we really appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.